Ali. Q.A. Describe the methods employed by the compilers of the major books of Hadith to ensure the hadiths they collected were authentic. 10. Or, A. What rules did the writers of the 6 authentic books, Sihah Sitta, apply to ensure the authenticity of hadiths? 10. B.I. Why is it important for Muslims to have collections of authentic hadiths? 4. Or, BII, why in your opinion was it important for them to apply these rules? 4. ANSA. The most important period of hadith collection was during the 3rd century of the Hijra calendar, during the time of Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, died 241 AH, 895 AD. The 6 major collectors of hadith, the Muhaddithin, utilized special tools to check the authenticity of each hadith before incorporating the same in their final compilations. These collectors were Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam Tirmizi, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, and Nasai. These scholarly people checked the main body, text, matan, and the chain of transmitters, isnad, plural of sanad or first reporter of each hadith very carefully. Thus, they were able to select only the genuine, sahih, hadith in their compilations. The text, matan, of each hadith was required to be in accordance with the teachings of the Quran and Sunnah, in the Arabic language of the age of the Prophet, in a simple expression, and in no way mention anything against the status and dignity of the Prophet and his family. It should also not be in clash with other ahadith already accepted as authentic. It should not contradict the normal experience of the people or the laws of nature. Matan should not contain details about any incident that took place after the Prophet's demise, nor should it mention praise of some particular individual, place or community, tribe, except for the ahadith mentioning the Prophet's special love for the closest relatives, e.g. al-Ibait, and companions. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Finally, the matan should not describe unusual rewards for ordinary deeds. Similarly, the chain of narrators, sanad, isnad, was checked thoroughly. Sanad literally means authority or support because each hadith had been transmitted from one to the next generation on the authority of transmitters. So a number of narrators will constitute a chain called isnad, many reporters or sanads. This chain could be short with 2 or 3 narrators or could comprise as many as 6 or more transmitters. It starts from a companion who then reported it to his disciple who in turn narrated the same to the next in the chain, and so on. The great authority on Islamic law, Imam al-Shafi'i, laid down rules to check the chain of transmitters. The chain of each hadith, starting from one of the major collectors, should always end on a companion. It should be totally uninterrupted and continuous. Dates of birth and death of all consecutive transmitters should overlap, i.e., each of the narrators should have been familiar with the previous and the next transmitter. Moreover, there were strict criteria regarding the memory and conduct of each narrator in the chain. For example, Imam Bukhari's memory was repeatedly tested. Once in Baghdad, the people chose 100 different hadiths and changed the sequence of the reporters as well as texts of the hadiths and recited them before Imam Bukhari. After hearing all these hadiths, he repeated each hadith with absolutely correct matan and isnad. He had memorized 2,000 traditions in his childhood. Being a very rich man, he traveled extensively and visited almost all the centers of Islam in the Muslim world from Central Asia to the Middle East. All reporters were required to have command on the Arabic language, the Quran, hadith, and fiqh, legal thinking. Each narrator should enjoy the repute of a pious scholar who should not have told a lie even as a matter of joke. He should not have committed any major sin. In this regard too, Imam Bukhari excelled all other collectors of hadith. Before conducting work on hadith, he would always take a bath and pray to God by offering 2 rakat of nafil prayer. Once a friend of Bukhari gave him a handsome amount of money, to be conveyed to another friend who lived on the other bank of the river. When Bukhari boarded the ship, another person who had witnessed the scene closely, also boarded. he made a plan to get that money illegally. So when the ship was in the middle of the river, that man raised an alarm saying that his money had been stolen. The sailor of the ship stopped and announced that every passenger would be bodily searched to settle the issue. When Bukhari came to know about this, he threw the money in the river and decided to bear the damages instead of being implicated in a false case of theft, though he knew he would be acquitted in the end. He did not risk his repute at all. This shows how careful these muhaddithin had been in their mission. As a result, only genuine hadiths were included in their collections called al-Sahih, al-Sittah, the 6 authoritative books. Imam Bukhari shortlisted 7,397 hadith from the initial total of 600,000. About 5,000 of these are repeated ones. Bi. It was vital to check the accuracy of hadith. While checking the authenticity of each hadith, the major collectors made sure that the hadith, in no way, should be in clash with the Quran. Moreover, hadith and the Quran are together called the primary sources of legal thinking. In case the unauthentic hadith was relied on, together with the Quran, the legal experts might have faced serious difficulties in making Islamic law. If at all any laws had been made by linking the weak or unauthentic hadith with the Quranic injunctions, the community in general would have gone astray. The Quran, in this regard, lays down a clear injunction about the intimate relationship between the Quran and the Sahih reliable hadith, so believe in God and His Messenger, the unlettered prophet who believes in God and His words, follow him so that you may be guided. 7:158, Al-Aif. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. ANSBII. If these rules were not applied by the major hadith collectors, they might have attributed wrong things to the Prophet and damaged the teachings of Islam. It is a grave sin to tell a lie about the Prophet. The Prophet warned in this regard, whoever deliberately attributes any falsehood to me, he should, in fact, find his abode in the hellfire. Only genuine hadiths explain and elaborate the Quranic teachings. Therefore, as a strict rule, the Quran and hadith can never contradict each other. Thus the major hadith collectors had to be unusually careful before accepting any hadith, otherwise a wrong or imperfect or confusing image of the Prophet would have been conveyed to the coming Muslim generations. By examining the Matn and Isnad minutely, they were able to find the real explanation of the Quran. This also helped in the process of legal thinking by the Muslim legal experts became easier and unquestionable. Q.A. Write a descriptive account of the terms Isnad and Matn of a hadith and the role they play in establishing the genuineness of a hadith. 10. B. How does the Muslim community benefit by having genuine compilations of hadiths? 4. ANSA. Hadith consists of two main parts, the text or matn and the chain of transmitters, Isnad. The 6 major collectors of hadith, the muhaddithin, thoroughly examined both these components to check the authenticity of each hadith before incorporating the same in their final compilations. These collectors were Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam Tirmizi, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, and Nasai. These scholarly people checked the main body, text, matn, and the chain of transmitters, Isnad, plural of sanad or first reporter of hadith, of each hadith very carefully. The text, matn, of each hadith was required to be in accordance with the teachings of the Quran and Sunnah. The text matn should be in the Arabic language of the age of the Prophet, in a simple expression, and in no way mention anything against the status and dignity of the Prophet and his family. It should also not be in clash with other ahadith already accepted as authentic. It should not contradict the normal experience of the people or the laws of nature. Matn should not contain details about any incident that took place after the Prophet's demise, nor should it mention praise of some particular individual, place or community, tribe, except for the ahadith mentioning the Prophet's special love for the closest relatives, e.g. al-Ibayt, and companions. Finally, the matn should not describe unusual rewards for ordinary deeds. Similarly, the chain of narrators, sanad, isnad, was checked thoroughly. Sanad literally means authority or support because each hadith had been transmitted from one to the next generation on the authority of transmitters. So a number of narrators will constitute a chain called isnad, many reporters or sanads. This chain could be short with 2 or 3 narrators or could comprise as many as 6 or more transmitters. It starts from a companion who then reported it to his disciple who in turn narrated the same to the next in the chain, and so on. The great authority on Islamic law, Imam al-Shafi'i, laid down rules to check the chain of transmitters. The chain of each hadith, starting from one of the major collectors, should always end on a companion. For example, Muhammad bin al-Mutanna reported from Abdul Wahhab, from Ayyub, from Abu Kilaba, from Malik that the Prophet said, "Pray as you see me praying." Agreed upon, here the list begins from Ibn al-Mutanna and ends on Malik who reported the matn about prayer. It should be totally uninterrupted and continuous. Dates of birth and death of all consecutive transmitters should overlap, i.e., each of the narrators should have been familiar with the previous and the next transmitter. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Imam Bukhari strictly followed the rule that the 2 consecutive narrators of hadith should have actually met to learn and transfer a hadith. They should also expressly state that they obtained the narrative from each other. Moreover, there were strict criteria regarding the memory, age, and conduct of each narrator in the chain. Each narrator was required to be mature enough to learn and teach the ahadith. Many ahadith were declared da'if or mawdu', fabricated, because 1 or 2 of the reporters in the isnad were found to be too young to report a hadith. For example, Imam Bukhari's memory was repeatedly tested though he was an exceptionally reputed scholar. Once in Baghdad the people chose 100 different hadiths and changed the sequence of the reporters as well as texts of the hadiths and recited them before Imam Bukhari. After hearing all these hadiths, he repeated each hadith with absolutely correct matn and isnad. He had memorized 2,000 traditions in his childhood. Being a very rich man, he traveled extensively and visited almost all the centers of Islam in the Muslim world from Central Asia to the Middle East. All reporters were required to have command on the Arabic language, the Quran, hadith, and fiqh, legal thinking. Each narrator should enjoy the repute of a pious scholar who should not have told a lie even as a matter of joke. He should not have committed any major sin. In this regard too, Imam Bukhari excelled all other collectors of hadith. Before conducting work on hadith he would always take a bath and pray to God by offering 2 rakat of nafil prayer. There are many events of these collectors about how they maintain their noble repute. As a result, only genuine hadiths were included in their collections called al-Sahih al-Sitta, the 6 authoritative books. Imam Bukhari shortlisted 7397 hadiths from the initial total of 600,000 hadiths. About 5,000 of these are repeated ones. B. It is vital for the Muslim community to have genuine hadith collections. By having genuine compilation it is helpful for Muslim legal experts to make laws easily. Hadith and the Quran are together called the primary sources of legal thinking. Every genuine hadith by no means clashes with the Quranic teachings. Instead, it elaborates the Quranic injunctions, and often supplements them. The Quran, in this regard says, "So believe in God and His Messenger, the unlettered prophet who believes in God and His words, follow him so that you may be guided." 7:158, Al-Aif, thus the genuine hadith collections are a source of interpretation of the Quran on one hand, and promoting unity in the Ummah on the other. Moreover, they help in presenting the fuller and genuine picture of Islam before the world. Finally, the 6 major collectors did a great job for the coming generations who are no more required to scrutinize the authentic hadith collections. Q.A. What are the different types of hadiths? How is each hadith classified into the different types? 10. B. Explain the importance of hadith Qudsi. 4. ANS. Sound hadith, Sahih. Hadiths are divided into various categories mainly on the basis of the degree of genuineness. Accordingly, a Sahih hadith is that which fulfills all requirements of matn, text, and sanad, isnad, chain of transmitters of hadith. In a Sahih hadith, matan conforms to the Quran, other ahadith of the Prophet, and status and grace of the Prophet. It is easily understandable, appeals to common sense and wisdom, and does not mention anything that violates the laws of nature. The chain of reporters is muttasil or totally uninterrupted. There is not even a slight defect in the memory or conduct of any of its reporters. All the reporters fulfill all strict conditions of. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Qualifying to be reliable reporters of hadith, thus making a flawless sanad, isnad. For example, modesty produces nothing but good, and purity is part of faith. Good hadith, Hasan. Next in terms of reliability is the Hasan hadith. It is as sound as a Sahih hadith except for a minor defect in the memory of one of the reporters, though its matan is absolutely authentic. This minor defect keeps it from being a Sahih hadith. Such a hadith may reach the level of Sahih if it is reported by several chains of transmitters. For example, Imam Malik, Abu Dawud and Al-Tirmidhi reported through this isnad. Amr bin Shu'aib reported from his father, who reported from his father, Amr's grandfather, who reported from the Messenger of God, who said, a single rider is a devil, two riders are two devils, but three makes a traveling party. Al-Tirmidhi declares it a Hasan hadith because its isnad includes grandfather, father, and grandson as reporters. Another example is, Ja'far bin Sulaiman narrated to us from Abu Imran from Abu Bakr bin Abu Musa Ash'ari, who said, I heard my father saying, God's messenger said, indeed the gates of paradise are beneath the shades of swords. Tirmidhi declared it a Hasan hadith because all narrators are reliable, except for the Ja'far bin Sulaiman. Generally, Muhaddithan treat Hasan ahadith like Sahih ahadith while still acknowledging their status lesser than the Sahih category. Weak hadith, da'if. A da'if, weak, hadith is the one that fails to reach the status of Hasan. The sanid or chain of reporters of a da'if hadith may be broken or ghair muttasil, and there is no evidence about the missing reporter. Moreover, there may be a serious defect in the memory or conduct of one or more of its reporters. One of the reporters in its isnad may have been too young to report a hadith. The narrator may not be well known for the nobility of his conduct, though his memory may have been excellent. He may have committed some sin that became public. Conversely, with an unquestionable conduct, the reporter may have a defect in his memory. Such a reporter may have made many mistakes or opposed the reliable narrators or have been involved in religious innovations. Some of such reporters include Abdullah bin Lahia, a famous judge from Egypt, Abdurrahman bin Zayd bin Aslam and Abu Bakr bin Abi Maryam al-Himsi. Similarly, hadith can be da'if due to an interruption in its isnad. A good example of a da'if hadith is, acquire knowledge even though you have to go to China. There is no evidence of unusual scholarly skills of the people of China in those days, but due to the lesson of importance of acquiring knowledge it remains an acceptable hadith. Muhaddithin have detected a number of chains, isnad, that have been proven as weak. For example, Ibrahim bin Amr bin Bakr reported from his father, who reported from Abd Aziz bin Abi Rawad, who reported from Nafi, who reported from Ibn Umar. In this chain both Ibrahim and his father are not acceptable, as both are accused of fabricating hadith. Finally, there are mawdu or fabricated ahadith. Their matan, texts, are unacceptable as they clash with the Quran and Sunnah. Many ahadith related to the end of time and arrival of Antichrist, Dajjal, belong to this category. Many enthusiastic scholars in the early history of Islam crafted ahadith in order to earn fame or attract non-Muslims to the fold of Islam, though such practice cannot be justified by any means. Such fabricated ahadith have nothing to do with the teachings of Islam. There are certain rules on whose basis such ahadith can be identified. For example, any hadith that runs contrary to observation and experience or states something against actual experience. For instance, brinjal is the cure for all diseases and ailments, and one should not take one's bath in water heated in the sun, as it causes leprosy. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. ANS-B. Hadith Qudsi is ranked on top among the Sahih Ahadith and is also called the non-recitable revelation that cannot be recited like the Quran. According to a famous muhaddith Sayyid al-Sharif al-Jurjani, a Qudsi hadith, according to its meaning, is one in which God Almighty has communicated to his prophet through revelation or in dream, and he, Muhammad, has communicated it in his own word. Thus a hadith Qudsi is the divine word spoken by the prophet himself. Unlike a hadith Nabawi, its isnad is traced back to God by way of the prophet. It is extremely helpful in understanding many teachings of Islam, such as articles of faith, pillars of Islam. Though such traditions were not formally incorporated in the Quran, they continue to enjoy an exceptionally special rating because the prophet was always guided by God throughout his prophetic mission. One major mark of identity of such traditions is that their matn, text, usually contains God's direct speech. Some other subtypes of hadith. Hadiths are also classified as mutawatir and ahad. A mutawatir hadith is reported by a huge number of reporters at every stage so that it becomes impossible for them to agree on a lie or a wrong report. An ahad hadith is one with a broken chain of reporters or that which was not widely accepted. Such hadiths may be acceptable if the reporters were proven honest and reliable. Otherwise they were not accepted. Ahad hadiths are subclassified into mashhur, aziz, and gharib. A mashhur, well known, is one which is well known publicly but does not enjoy the status of universality. It was narrated by 3 narrators at every stage. An aziz, strong or corroborative, hadith is narrated by 2 reporters in all ages, whereas a gharib, rare or unfamiliar, rests on the report of a single narrator at any particular stage. Q.A. Describe how the hadiths are used in establishing law in Islam. 10. B. My community will never agree upon an error. In your opinion, why is this hadith important for the practice of consensus, ijma? 4. ANS-A. Hadiths, ahadith, of the Prophet constitute basis of Islamic legal thinking, together with the Quran. Both the Quran and hadith collectively are called the primary or main sources of legal thinking. The Quran, therefore, mentions the 2 sources together at many places. For example, O you who believe, obey God and obey the Messenger. For 59, Al-Nisa, here obeying God means following the Quranic guidance, whereas obeying the Messenger implies following the Sunnah or hadith of the Prophet. Hadiths primarily elaborate and explain the Quranic teachings. In some cases, they supplement the injunctions contained in the Quran. There are many examples that can be cited in this regard. The Quran repeatedly commands to pay zakat by saying, and establish regular prayer and pay the charity tax, zakat. 243, Al-Baqarah, another verse of the Quran enlists all the 8 categories of those entitled to receive zakat. Alms are for the poor and the needy, and for the wayfarer. 9 hours 60 minutes, Al-Tawbah, it, however, does not provide the details about the limit of one's possessions or assets on which they are required to pay zakat. Also, there are no details about the rate, nisab, or percentage of earnings assets at which it should be paid. Hadiths of the Prophet provide all these details. For example, this hadith, Abu Sa'id Khudri narrated that the Messenger of God said, no charity tax is due on property. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Amounting to less than 5 uqiyah, and no charity tax is due on fewer than 5 camels, and there is no charity tax on fewer than 5 wask. Sahih al-Bukhari, thus, details of nisab were worked out. Regarding the practice of usury, riba, the Quran forbids it at different places and warns, in a strict tone, those who charge usury on the loan, but God has permitted trade and forbidden usury. 2:275, Al-Baqarah. These and other verses do not provide exact definition and modes of usury, interest. The Prophet's hadiths illustrate these commands in detail. We asked God's messenger about money exchange. He replied, if it is from hand to hand, there is no harm in it, otherwise, it is not permissible. Another hadith says, the bartering of gold for gold is usury, except if it is from hand to hand and equal in amount. These hadiths refer to a primitive mode of usury when wicked traders used to exchange goods at an inflated price so that their trade partners incurred deficit. Hadiths of the Prophet also elaborate details of crime and punishment. The Quran prescribes the punishment of theft as for the thief, male or female, cut off his or her hand. 538, Al-Ma'idah. The Quranic command does not specify the limit of the amount stolen by a thief on which this punishment is prescribed. Hadiths provide the details of hadd, maximum punishment of cutting off hand, and ta'zir, milder punishment. Hazrat Aisha reported that the Prophet said, the hand of a thief should be cut off for stealing a quarter of a dinar. Hazrat Abdullah bin Umar reported that the Prophet ordered cutting off the hand of a thief for stealing a shield that was worth 3 dirhams. The Quran instructs the pilgrimage to the house is a duty men owe to God those who can afford the journey. 3 hours 97 minutes, Ali Imran, however, it does not give details about the Miqat and Ihram. The Prophet in this regard said, one should not pass the Miqat unless she is in the state of Ihram. Al-Bukhari, in other ahadith he elaborated the details of the Miqat for pilgrims coming to Makkah from various directions. Hadiths of the Prophet have been employed by legal experts to support the secondary sources of Islamic law, ijma, consensus, and qiyas or analogical deduction. The Prophet told his followers to work together to resolve any conflict or to find solution to new problems. Accordingly, his successors resolved various issues by ijma, consensus. For example, the Prophet had not given any instruction about putting the Quran into a book form. After his death, compilation of the Quran during Hazrat Abu Bakr's caliphate was a decision reached by ijma of the companions. Similarly, election of Hazrat Abu Bakr as the first caliph by the companions was an example of qiyas. The Prophet, in the last days of his life, had appointed Abu Bakr to lead the Muslims in daily prayers. The companions found the illah between the Prophet's decision and Abu Bakr's eligibility to lead the Muslims. So, Hazrat Abu Bakr was chosen as the first caliph by a majority of the companions. ANS.B. This hadith indicates the Prophet's approval for exercising ijma in Islamic legal thinking. The Prophet has guaranteed its success because of the involvement of collective wisdom in ijma. Such a collective work reduces the chances of making a mistake or reaching a wrong decision. Therefore, a united effort is likely to enjoy the blessing and support of God. For the same reason, the Prophet in another hadith ensured the success of ijma as, hand of God is on the community. Thus the Prophet has conveyed a subtle message of a continued unity among Muslims so that they do not fall victim to conflicting opinions regarding new challenges and issues. The Prophet had fully trained his followers by explaining to them the Quran and demonstrating his sunnah so that they could carry out ijma after his departure from this world, without any confusion or mistake.